This was the moment when Jen texted me and was like, we're taking down the fucking Warren.
Fuck it all. Burn it to the ground. Welcome to Not My Ghost, Not My Problem.
The paranormal comedy podcast where belief meets skepticism.
We're the podcast that haunts back.
I'm Kelly.
And I'm Jen. And today, we're staying in the Warren universe. But we're not doing the case deep dive just yet.
No, we're not.
This one is about the stuff underneath the stories. The timeline details that don't lock in cleanly, the claims that get repeated back like credentials, and the blurred lines between working with the church and sounding like the church. It's the kind of episode where you realize the scariest thing might not be a demon. It might be how confident someone can sound without giving you anything to actually verify. So grab your calendar, a highlighter, and a notebook for all the red flags, because today we're auditing the Warrens.
If Jen's text messages to me while she was researching this is any indication,
Oh,
it's going to be fun.
It's fun. I'm fascinated by all of this, but I am also over all of this because
Right.
this will be a 3-part episode. Next week, we will actually get into the cases, the well-known cases that have been made into movies. And I'll talk about some of those red flags. But there were other red flags that I had to present to make sure everyone here got the full picture. Before we do that, welcome to our scripted, unscripted banter. And I do have a question for you, Kelly.
Okay.
When does telling the story become exploiting the people that are living it or the people who lived it versus just investigating and putting their story out there?
Well, this is tricky for us because we tell other people's stories all the time.
We do.
And we do it for money. Not that we make any.
We don't make any money yet, but
that's the goal.
That's the hope one day.
I think it becomes exploiting when you are sensationalizing. Did I say that right? Things that happened instead of like this is the facts of what happened. This is the story that like is true to the facts as you can get that we are aware of. Because really, if you get down to it, then everything is exploiting people, like journalism, like that's all, everything. So I think when you start changing the story, making it something that it's not, misrepresenting the people who lived it and their lived experience of it, that's probably where the line is.
I agree. I think when you start valuing entertainment over truth, that's when it becomes exploiting. Like our goal, obviously, we have a podcast. We want to entertain you. That's why people listen to podcasts, right? But we don't make shit up. Like,
true.
We're going to tell the story. And that's why there's some episodes, I'm sure, that are better than others because just some stories just aren't as entertaining as others.
Right.
And that's kind of our goal.
And there's times that we get it wrong. And when we do, we say, hey, we found this out, or we got more information for this, or, that's something that is important to us too. Yeah. Throughout, if we find something like egregious that we said that ends up not being the case, like we will come in and correct that mistake. Yes. Because we went on a investigation of the old jail in St. Augustine, and we didn't really get much because or couldn't really present much because there was a lot of other people there. We didn't come and like blow smoke up your ass. No. Fake stuff.
That's not why we're here. We're not here to prove or disprove the paranormal. We're here to tell you the stories, hopefully in an entertaining way, and present you with various sides.
Yeah.
And the research that's
Hopefully
behind.
make you laugh along the way.
Hopefully, that's the goal.
Yeah.
Okay, so last week I did not do the facts because I forgot them. So
Sure.
I know usually in two-parters, three-parters, I don't continue to do facts, but I'm gonna do last week's facts because, again, I forgot them because we're switching up the way that we do the intro and all of that. So we're learning. And about halfway through last week's episode, I was like, shit, I forgot the facts.
Yeah, we're really kind of playing around with things here. We're trying to figure out what works best in video form because, for a year and a half we did only audio.
The facts that I have for you all are about haunted objects because if you know anything about the Warrens, you know that they like to collect haunted objects. So this is more about the history, some historical information about haunted objects. So fact 1, in medieval Christianity, relics, which are bones, cloths, dust, fragments, etc., were treated as spiritually potent. And they were often sealed inside ornate reliquaries made to display the power while also containing it.
I know that like in Catholic churches, they have, I don't know what exactly. I'm just going to use the word altar, but I'm not sure if that's what it is called, where maybe they prepare the Eucharist or they pray over the Eucharist or something. And in those tables, there's the bone, and all of them, there's like a bone of one of the saints, like in those tables.
Okay.
At least I think that I know that. It could be something that I just heard that's not true, but I'm pretty sure that that's accurate.
Okay, that's fair. Fact number 2, early modern Europe had a real tradition of hiding items like witches' bottles and concealed shoes inside walls, chimneys, and thresholds as home protection. Basically, counter magic. It's a haunted object as a security system.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's an interesting security system. I kind of like it.
Me too. And our last fact is in museum psychology, there's evidence for a museum effect, which is the same art is experienced as more positive or interesting or arousing and is remembered better when viewed in a museum context versus on a lab or computer simulation. This supports the glass case / curated display that makes something feel more significant claim.
That's interesting. I love the fact that there's museum psychology. I guess there's psychology for everything, but that just word was kind of fun.
Yeah, museum
I don't
psychology.
know that phrase.
Okay. Before we jump into the episode, though, I do have a content warning. So this episode will include discussions of alleged sexual misconduct involving a minor, plus allegations of abuse and coercion. There will not be any graphic detail, but listener discretion is advised.
Yes, because it gets dark.
Yeah, it does. So in part 1, we covered the Warrens' origin story. And the main point of that was simple, because before we even get to the hauntings, their timeline doesn't stay consistent. The Warrens' version of events reads clean and cinematic, because that's the way they want it to be read. But the second you start to line it up, we see that pieces start slipping. So I'm just going to do a very brief recap of some of the biggest issues, because I've got some new cracks that I want to add to it that I found as I dug a little deeper.
Okay.
So if you remember from last week's episode, and if you haven't watched it, go back and watch it because it was great. But just a quick recap. We remember that there was the problem with when Ed enlisted. The enlisted on his 17th birthday doesn't match Ed's listed birth year. And in one version, it would also have placed his enlistment after World War II even ended. So again, could have just been a typo. And then on their website, Nesper, there was the inconsistency. Even within the website, on one page, it would list this date, and on another page, it would say this date. And that is multiple timeline stories, events. All the dates are fucked up. Then we talked about the Spring Hill incident, which was the ship that sank that Ed was supposedly on. Now, as we said, this did actually happen, but Ed's retelling kind of shifted some of the details between the year, exaggerating the setting, making it sound like there were sharks in the water, despite the fact that none of that was ever reported. And there were articles out there that talked about this disaster.
Also said that it happened in the North Atlantic.
Yeah.
Which it technically did.
But
when you say in the North Atlantic, that implies in the middle of the ocean, not right offshore.
Yeah. Yeah. There was also the problem with him saying he got a 30-day survivor leave, immediately went home and married Lorraine, but the wedding date didn't match up to when the event happened. And then there's the weird detail of Judy's birth year, which is listed on their website as one date and listed on Google as another.
And Judy is alive. Her husband, who runs the website, can say, if he doesn't know, hey, babe, what year were you born again?
Yeah. just all weird stuff, right?
It's pretty weird.
So I don't want to relitigate the whole story. I just want to flag a couple of other inconsistencies that I found. So
relitigate, that's a great word.
Thank you. I
sound like a lawyer.
I know.
And may we say that all of this is allegedly.
Yes. Well, this isn't allegedly. This is the math don't math. The inconsistencies are not alleged. They are inconsistent.
I mean, what we're about to report.
Yes, that I'll get to that. That's allegedly. But this isn't alleged. This is one thing says this, one thing says that. The math doesn't work.
It was just a dumb lawyer joke. You were just supposed to laugh.
Oh. Great joke, Kelly.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're such a bitch.
So the Warrens claimed on their website that they met in 1944 when they were both 16. This is not physically possible.
They were not born in the same year.
Well, there was a very short period of time that they could have met and both been 16.
Okay.
But not in 1944.
Okay.
So the Warren story says their meet cute was in 1944, says they were both 16. Their tombstones list their birthdays. So again, I'm taking tombstones as fact. Most of the time you don't have a typo on your tombstone.
Correct.
So it says that Ed was born on September 7th, 1926, and Lorraine January 31st, 1927. That means that Lorraine turned 17 on January 31st, 1944. So she is only 16 for the first 30 days of 1944. And Ed is already 17 in 1944, and he would have turned 18 in September.
Okay.
So the claim that they met in 1944 and were both 16 cannot be true. At best, Lorraine was 16, but only for the first 30 days, and Ed was never 16. Also, I find it highly unlikely that they met in the first 30 days of 1944 because their meet cute was how Ed walked her home. And I don't know. I don't feel like you're probably walking someone home like that in the middle of January in Connecticut. It's probably really cold. Could happen, but it just seems unlikely.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem to line up.
Yeah. So again, it does nothing prove or disprove anything. It's just weird.
Yeah.
When you add them all together. So the other thing I want to point out is about the Spring Hill incident. So a New York Times article that was dated February 6, 1945, says that 17 men died, about 23 were missing, and 113 were injured. But in the article that is written by Ed's son-in-law, it says that Ed was one of 69 survivors. So unless survivors is being defined in some hyper-specific way, like uninjured survivors, maybe only from one vessel, maybe just a subset of part of the crew. And to me, anyone who is injured is by definition a survivor. So if there were 113 people that were injured, the total number of survivors should be at least that, right?
You would think.
It's just a huge number to kind of fuck up. Now, to be clear, this article was published the day after the disaster happened, so numbers can shift as the incident is investigated. It is also possible that maybe some of those injured ended up dying, but it just is a very large variance.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the son-in-law could be, because he is just reporting what Ed had said, right?
Yes.
I don't know. It's just too much. If this was like a one thing that
Right.
didn't add up, you could see where maybe Ed misremembered something, or
Yeah,
but all of this
typo.
is,
It's
yeah.
just a lot. Just a lot. So again, could all of this just be a simple typo? Maybe. But it's the kind of typo that you don't expect to survive for years on an organization's official timeline if accuracy matters to them.
Correct.
Yeah. So before we even touch the cases, the Warren story already has a pattern of dates that don't reconcile and details that shift. So in part one, I said that I wasn't going to go any deeper into the personal controversy around Ed because it is all allegations. And at the time, I said it felt wrong to spend time on something that serious when it wasn't even proven. But as I kept researching, I just found some additional claims tied to the same story. And once I had that fuller context, I didn't feel like I could responsibly leave that as just a vague mention. I'm going to share what I found so that you all have the complete picture. Not because I am trying to litigate someone's private life decades later, but because the Warrens' entire brand rests on credibility, authority, and trust. I feel like this is important to know.
And also like moral standing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when the evidence of famous cases often comes down to testimony, ethics, and behavior of the people asking to be believed, I feel like this all matters. And again, to be crystal clear, none of this is proven. It is all alleged. Okay? I'm not saying this happened. I'm just presenting what's out there. So Judith Penny is a woman who shows up in December 2017 during some media coverage that surfaced amid ongoing legal fights over the Conjuring franchise profits and the Warren story rights, which we'll get to that later. Ed did die in 2006, so the public really only got one side through attorneys and reps, and I'm pretty sure at this time Lorraine's health was already kind of declining as well, so they were not really able to fully defend themselves. But multiple outlets ran stories on December 13th, 2017, reporting that Judith Penny made claims in a sworn declaration. Now, this declaration was dated in 2014, and the document obviously did exist for a while, but it didn't really hit mainstream coverage until the whole legal battles came out with the Conjuring.
Right.
So in this reporting, Penny is described as alleging that she had sexual relationships with Ed Warren that began when she was 15, and that Lorraine knew about it the entire time. She alleged...
And how old was Ed?
In his 30s, I think.
That's so fucking gross.
Yeah. So she alleged that she was moved into the Warrens' home in the early 1960s and remained connected to them for decades. At the time, Ed was doing his whole art scam, and also working as a bus driver, which I didn't know that until I dug a little bit deeper. So that's interesting. I don't know what type of bus driver, hopefully not one with children, but I don't know.
Oh God,
That
that's a terrible thought. Oh no, I don't like
Mhm.
get it out of my head.
Yeah. Yeah. The one news site did frame this kind of as part of the background that was reported underneath some of the other reports. Penny also alleged that Ed was abusive towards Lorraine.
Oh, I can see it.
There was a quote allegation from Penny saying that Ed would slap Lorraine, and multiple news articles kind of summarize these abuse claims. One source also reported an extra detail that said Penny claimed that she was arrested in 1963 after a concerned citizen reported the relationship. She was then court ordered to attend a juvenile program for a month. And it was said.
What? Wait. She was arrested? A 30-year-old is having sex with a 15-year-old. Somebody reports it, and she gets arrested and then sent to a juvenile. She.
And guess who picked her up from school and drove her to those meetings?
You know, we know what it's like to exist in the world as women. Somehow it still amazes me how fucked up this shit actually is.
It does. I know I shouldn't be surprised when I hear shit like this, but I am.
Mm-hmm. Same.
So these reports place the arrest and court-ordered delinquent youth office happening in 1963. We don't know her exact age. There's not a lot. I tried to find more about Penny, but there's really not a lot out there on her. So I don't know how old she was. It does say she was still in school. And as we know, Penny claimed that the relationship began when she was 15. So she was still a minor at that point. And then Penny also alleged that she became pregnant in 1978 and was pressured into an abortion by Lorraine. She also included a claim that she was urged to tell people that she had been raped to cover the situation.
Well, she was.
Well, yeah. Now, this did happen when she was an adult, but it is obviously still a serious allegation of coercion and control.
Mm-hmm.
If she was with Ed since she was 15, that is grooming and
Yep.
a lot of trauma that goes around that. So yeah, I felt like if I knew that, everyone else had to know it too. Now, both news outlets did report a denial from Lorraine Warren's attorney. The attorney's position is reported as the family had no knowledge of the alleged conduct / disputes or any type of secret lover framing. They also said that Penny was taken in when she was 18 because she had nowhere else to live, and she primarily stayed at home while Ed and Lorraine traveled for various cases and lectures. And as I said, Lorraine was declining in health at the time, so she did not personally respond to any coverage.
But there would be arrest records. And
I did try to find that, but because those happened when Penny was a minor,
they're sealed. Yeah.
We can't find any evidence of that. I attempted. So again, all allegedly.
Is Penny still alive?
I could not find any information. It is like she is erased from the internet.
Penny, if you're listening to this.
And we know you are.
I mean, why wouldn't you be?
Yeah. You see a podcast that talks about, you see a podcast that talks about how awful the Warrens are. I'm sure you're listening.
Yeah.
But yeah, we believe you.
And we're really, 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 really fucking sorry that you went through that.
Yeah. So if the Warrens were just two random people telling scary stories, this would just be gossip. But they weren't, right? They presented themselves as a married Catholic couple operating as spiritual helpers position themselves as protectors, stepping into family crises. Crises? How do you say that word?
I think both might work. I don't know.
I don't know. Let us know in the comments. How do you properly say that word? And they were asking people to trust them in very high stakes situations. So allegations involving a minor, power imbalance, coercion, and violence aren't just personal drama. They go directly to the question of boundaries and credibility, especially when the work itself often relies on the Warrens controlling the narrative. Part of their public authority came from being moral and faith-driven. And serious allegations of exploitation or abuse aren't just a side note. They are a direct contradiction of the image that made their influence possible. I just felt the need to include it because it was worse than I already thought it was pretty bad. Just you can't get much worse than saying like there are allegations that you sexually assaulted a minor for years. But I just felt the details needed to be framed slightly more. So yeah.
Fun times.
But before we go on any further with the Warrens, we need to hit pause just a second, and we need to define a word that they have built their entire reputation on. Demonology.
I don't think that that's any kind of an official thing, but
we'll
if
find
my
out.
kid told me that they were going to become a demonologist, I might be a little like disappointed.
Well, we're going to find out exactly what it means, Kelly.
Okay.
Because once Ed starts calling himself a demonologist, it kind of started to change how every story was framed. So we're going to step away from the Warrens, like I said, and we're going to ask, what is demonology? Who gets to claim the title? And what, if anything, does it have to do with the Catholic Church? So at its most basic, demonology is the study of demons. Good one. I thought about that and I was like, it's a little different, but you got it. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
In practice, demonology can mean a few different things depending on who is using the word. So theological demonology is how religion explains evil spirits inside its own belief system. Then you have folklore or cultural demonology. And this is how demons show up in regional stories, legends, and various rules around them. Then you have the occult or esoteric demonology. This is grimoires, hierarchies, names, rituals, the stuff people think of when they hear demonology, usually, even though it's not really the same thing as the church practice. So I really want everyone to understand here that demonology and exorcisms are not the same thing. So demonology is the framework, the what is this and how does it work? And exorcism is the actual action that the church treats as a controlled religious rite.
The Catholic Church, it is a rite that only can be performed by a priest. Just like your last rites, if you are dying, can only be performed by a priest.
Yes.
In the Catholic Church.
Which I'm about to say.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. So in the Catholic practice specifically, the official term isn't demonologist, it's exorcist. And that role is typically a priest who has been anointed by a bishop.
Not typically, always.
Yes.
In the Catholic Church.
Yes. So priests can pray and bless and provide pastoral care, but a formal exorcism is a specific rite that requires the authorization of a bishop.
And in the church, it's not common knowledge who the priest with that anointing for that. It's not common knowledge. So it's not like you can be a priest that's got a friend that's another priest that is an exorcist, that has that anointing, and you never know.
Yeah.
It's something that's very guarded by the church on who is anointed to do these things.
Yep. So, how do you become a demonologist, Kelly?
You just tell people that you are.
Well, that's what some people think.
Yeah,
So, there's no universal credential to become a
of course.
demonologist.
It's
There's
not a
no
course you can
nope.
take.
There's no licensing board, no standard degree that turns you into an official demonologist. So when you hear someone claim the title, you always have to ask, according to who? Because demonologist can mean an academic who studies religion, history, or folklore, a clergy trained in spiritual care, sometimes adjacent to deliverance ministry, someone who just knows a lot about demons, or an investigator using the term as an authority signal.
Yeah. It's just one of those things that, like, I remember watching, well, I think it was Ghost Hunters, but I could have it wrong. And they had somebody on there that was a demonologist, and they were talking about demons and like the names of demons. And this was a long time ago, so it could be a completely different show. And at that time, I remember thinking, how the hell do you become a demonologist?
You basically just start
and
calling yourself a
also,
demonologist.
and also the art, or I don't know, the art, the study of like demons' names and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You have like your common ones that you know from maybe the Bible. I don't know. I don't know where they get the names, where they come up with like,
Yeah.
oh, these are the names of the demons, like, and what
We're
context.
clearly not demonologists.
Right. Because you have common ones that like you'll hear across different religions. And I'm like,
Yeah.
where exactly do these names come from?
I don't know.
We'll have to look that up.
Yeah. Okay, so how does all of this relate to the church? The Catholic Church has a framework for claims of possession, which, if you are interested in that, please go back and listen to our episode on the movie The Exorcist from
Yes.
October 2024. And that is supposed to be very cautious, right? It involves pastoral oversight. In many places, it has to rule out medical or psychological explanations before escalating, which is good, right? You shouldn't just be performing exorcisms willy-nilly. But someone calling themselves a demonologist isn't automatically a part of the church. A non-clergy investigator can be devout, can advise, can observe, and can be invited into a situation, but they're not the church, and they're not operating with the church authority unless a specific priest or bishop is actually backing their involvement. So why does all of this matter? Well, if demonologist isn't an official church title, then the question we have for Ed Warren isn't, did he have a demonology degree, which he didn't. It's, by what means did he claim that title? Who treated him as an authority? And how much of that authority came from proximity to the Catholic language rather than Catholic authorization?
Yes. So my friend Michelle, who is works for a diocese, she's a devout Catholic. She's got a master's in theology. She's my go-to for anything really religion related, specifically Catholicism. One of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. And I ran this by her. And I said that the Warrens claim that the Catholic Church would call them in to deal with cases of, demons and possessions. And she had a hearty laugh out of that. And she was like, that's not anything that would ever happen in the Catholic Church. They have their own investigators. Have you ever watched the show Evil?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they do have people that they send out to investigate if there is a legitimate claim of possession. But those exorcisms, all of that is only done by a specific priests that can do the rite of exorcism.
Yeah, and we'll touch on that and even more in a second, too.
Okay.
So we're going to zoom back on Ed because As we said, demonologist is the title that turns him from a paranormal guy with stories into a spiritual authority with urgency. By the early 1970s, the Warrens were already on the lecture and investigation circuit. But I just want to point out that after The Exorcist movie came out in 1973 and possession became more of a mainstream obsession, there is evidence that the Warrens leaned a little harder into demonology. Not that demons were new, but that branding and emphasis just got a lot sharper and louder and way more market ready.
Say it ain't so.
Never. Nah, not them. Not the Warrens. They're such trustworthy people.
You know, when movies and things like this take off, and then you have like a rise in like exorcisms, and so I'm just wondering, like, why do movies with just like the feel good, like, do you remember that movie? You probably don't. I don't know if you were born. You probably were. It's called Pay It Forward.
Yeah.
Where, you know, so I don't remember exactly what it is.
I have seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. Some kind, somebody does something kind for somebody and then they pay it forward and do something kind and pay it forward. And like, why did that not catch on?
I don't know, but I just thought I heard, like, sounded like Ellie, like, dropped a toy and she's laying in her bed.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Okay.
Weird. Yeah, I don't know. I also, devil's advocate here, funny wording, think of it in the same way as people are saying, why all of a sudden does everybody have ADHD and autism? Not because there's, anything happening that's causing it, but because people are able to recognize it more. So I do just want to point that out, because we can't say it about that and not say it about maybe The Exorcist allowed people to recognize demonic possession, even though it was just a movie, but maybe it just brought it to people's attention. Not saying that's what it was or what it wasn't, but I feel like I have to present that as one side.
Okay.
Okay, so multiple sources said that Ed always said he was self-taught, self-described, or self-professed, which, okay, fair. Their official website says on their about that the language goes further than we're Catholic or we work cases. It claims that religious authorities constantly turned to Ed and Lorraine to handle diabolical phenomena. Do, 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 do. And that's a big claim. And it's also exactly the kind of statement that sounds official without really giving you any specifics. So the Warrens have often claimed that Ed is the only demonologist recognized by the Vatican or the only non-ordained exorcist. And this is one of those famous Warren lines that just gets repeated so often that it starts to feel like a credential. In fact, this is in the beginning of the first Conjuring movie. Text appears on the screen.
Well, but the Conjuring movies are movies.
That is true. That say they're based on a true story.
Yeah, but what I have learned is based on a true story is so loose.
It is. And I'm not saying that the way that it is presented makes a lot of people feel like it's fact, especially since it is a line that the real Warrens have repeatedly claimed.
I know. I'm just saying, like, when you're for reference for people listening, when you are dealing with a Hollywood movie that is about a true story, do not take anything in that movie as
fact.
Truth.
Yeah. And we will dive into that next week.
Yay.
So that'll be fun. Catholic-facing reviews and commentary don't treat the Vatican-recognized, only ordained exorcist as a verified credential. They tend to frame it more as something Ed claimed or was billed as, and not something supported by public church record. And the church policy piece is pretty straightforward, as Kelly said earlier. In standard Catholic practice, a formal exorcism is not a freelance activity. It's performed by a priest who has explicit permission from a bishop. And Catholic sources repeatedly emphasize that lay people are not authorized to perform exorcisms. So even if the Warrens had a real relationship with an individual clergy member, that's not the same thing as Vatican recognized or an official church authorization.
Correct.
And I may say this again later, and if I do, I apologize, but I thought it was in this part, and it might have got lost in an edit. But there is also reports that one of the clergy members that they worked with later was like disbarred, or I don't know, disbarred is a lawyer word. Disbarred. You know what I mean? Was
defrocked.
basically, is that the word? Defrocked? Okay. Was
Probably,
basically no longer affiliated with the church. I don't know why. I just saw it in passing. I thought I included it, but maybe I did later. I don't remember. I had to do a lot of editing to kind of get it down to a sizable part 2.
Right.
So bear with me. So basically the clean takeaway of this is the Warrens implied a level of institutional church backing that cannot be publicly verified, and Catholic sources often treat the strongest version of this claim as marketing, not documentation.
Yeah.
So based on how the Warrens and their defenders talk, working with the church usually meant one of these things. A local priest showed up at some point, a blessing, prayer, or pastoral support. They consulted or claimed consultation with this clergy, and then they framed cases using Catholic language and rituals. But here's the key. That's not the same thing as an official church authorization. The church's formal authority structure runs through bishops and appointed priests, and the recognized by the Vatican style claims would normally leave a clearer paper trail than what we have publicly available to us.
Yes, I will say that there could be a paper trail of anything in the Catholic Church that's just not publicly available. Like
That's
I said,
true.
the priests that are anointed in the rite of exorcism, there's not going to be public knowledge about that.
Yes. But
And you're not going to find that.
In multiple sources, the Catholic Church came out saying that there was like no official affiliation with the Warrens.
Well, yeah.
So next we are going to jump into the evidence problems that we have with the Warrens.
Okay.
So in one sentence, the Warrens spoke like they had receipts. But what they often had was testimony, thin documentation, and a whole lot of confidence. They routinely referenced photos, recordings, case files. I'm doing so many air quotes this episode. And witnesses. But when you look at what is broadly available for independent review, the biggest stories are only held up by testimony. The family's account plus the Warrens' account plus a version of events that's extremely hard to verify. First, skeptics who have met with the Warrens and reviewed what they did present as evidence, photos, audio, case content, they basically concluded that it didn't hold up to even basic scrutiny. Next, there was an author, Ray Garton, who worked with them on a case-related book. And he described a story-first dynamic where consistency and what plays matters more than verification, including promised materials that never materialized. This directly challenges the idea that the Warrens were evidence-driven, more air quotes. And third, a separate skeptical reporting points to something else that changed the read: publicity. claims that they have approached reporters because they wanted coverage. Now, that doesn't automatically mean that it's fake, but it does kind of matter when the evidence is already paper thin. So this critique is laid out directly in the New England Skeptical Society piece, Hunting the Ghost Hunters, written by Perry DeAngelis and Stephen Novelia in July 1977. So if you're trying to back extraordinary claims, the gold standard is raw material, right? Clear context and the ability for others to evaluate it. But what you often run into with the Warrens is the opposite. We have tons of evidence paired with evidence that isn't accessible or might not even exist. It's just not strong enough to justify what they speak. And they say this a lot in a lot of interviews if you watch them. Well, we have that. We have video. We have this. We just can't show it to you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then don't even tell me it exists.
Right. I'm sorry. As someone who also likes to investigate the paranormal, if I captured something that was evidence of the paranormal, I am fucking putting it everywhere. I want experts to try to debunk it. I want someone to look at it and say, no, it could be that, or did you think it could be, or verify, like, based on what you're telling me, I think this might be real. I want it to go under that scrutiny.
They treat it like it's what we are experiencing today with some very real files that should be released that are not. So, like, release the files, Ed and Lorraine.
Yeah. And and if you do redact them, please do it in Adobe Acrobat.
No.
So we can
yeah, please.
easily go in and unredact them ourselves. Please.
Sure, why not?
That'd be great. Perfect. So when we say that we have an evidence problem, we don't just mean that some of their evidence is questionable. We mean that the Warrens built authority on certainty and story structure, while the public often can't independently audit the underlying proof at a level that their competence suggests. And that's when the question stops being, do you believe in demons? And becomes, why should you treat any of their stuff as proof?
Yep.
Before we wrap up part 2, we need to talk about the least spooky part of the Warren universe, but maybe one of the most revealing: the lawsuits, the contracts, and the way that the story gets legally managed. So I said earlier that there was a big legal battle in 2017. These fights weren't about ghosts. They were about who owns the Warrens. So once The Conjuring became a money-printing franchise, multiple people started arguing over the rights tied to the Warrens. The case files, the books, and the based on a true story pipeline, more air quotes. One of the biggest public fights came from Gerald Brittle, who is the author of The Demonologist, and he sued Warner Brothers and New Line, claiming that the franchise infringed his rights connected to his work with the Warrens. So in December 2017, outlets reported that Brittle had agreed to dismiss his lawsuit with prejudice, which basically just means that the plaintiff is barred from refiling the same claims again against New Line and its affiliates, and that the parties announced the dismissal on the record in an open court. In the same reporting, the parties' joint statement said Brittle realizes that filing this lawsuit was a mistake and that New Line had no liability and did nothing wrong. Now, I was unable to confirm whether there was any payout amount or any type of specific settlement. The public reporting on the settlement basically just focused on the dismissal with prejudice and the joint statement rather than any type of dollar figures.
Okay.
I was not able to confirm whether there was any type of payout amount or any specific settlement terms. They basically were just focusing on the dismissal with prejudice and the joint statement. So I don't know what happened, but it just seems weird that he would file this lawsuit and then suddenly be like, just kidding. I don't actually think they did anything wrong. So next one was The Devil Made Me Do It blowback. We all know that movie.
Mm-hmm.
In 2007, Carl Glatzel sued Lorraine Warren and Brittle over The Devil in Connecticut, which was a book that was written about it, alleging that the story harmed him and was presented as fact in ways that he disputed. Reporting at the time noted that the timing mattered because the book was reprinted, which opened the door for a newer claim window.
Oh.
Yeah. And
Okay.
importantly, later coverage described the lawsuit as ultimately dismissed. So the clean way to say it is the case was filed, it drew public attention back to the dispute, and then it was later dismissed. But this still matters because it does show how contested the true story pipeline was by the people that were inside it.
Weird things are happening in my podcast room, everyone.
It's pretty normal.
It's kind of distracting me.
Yeah.
And now they are going to stop happening.
You tell those ghosts, Kelly.
That's right.
I know. My this will come out after the paranormal postcards episode. So last night we recorded with Joel for our January paranormal postcards episode, which came out a couple of weeks ago by the time you're listening to this. And after we finished recording and we had, stopped the recording, of course, because it couldn't freaking happen on camera. We're just sitting here kind of talking, planning the next schedule when we're going to record next. And my little balloon lights that I have on my altar with my dolls, one of them went off and just started flickering. And
was that after we stopped recording?
It was.
Oh, damn.
I know.
I was thinking it was in the episode.
No, it's not. I'm very disappointed about it. But it was funny because
messed up. Because before we started recording, Elias was going off.
Yes, and then Elias stopped, and then the whole episode we had nothing. And then my dolls started acting up. And I asked them, they have been really quiet. Those balloon lights, when I first got them, they would go off like crazy. And they have barely, like maybe once in the past month, have gone off. And usually when they do go off, I will eventually have to get up and go turn it off because they're really good at turning it on, but they are not so good at turning it off. But by the time we got off camera with Joel, they had turned it off themselves. But it was flickering while we were talking. I should have hit record again, but I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
I was several glasses of wine deep at that point.
I was a whole bottle of wine deep at that point. I'm disappointed, guys, because I used to drink a glass of wine, not even finish a glass of wine, and I had a nice buzz going. Jen can attest to the fact that I would be a very cheap drunk date. And I only really drink when I'm with Jen, either in person or
recording.
When we're recording. Last night, I drank an entire bottle of wine, and I didn't even feel it. And that's not good for my wallet.
I'm a bad influence on her, y'all. Sorry.
Contrast just the paranormal postcards, the one before the one we just recorded. I had an entire bottle of wine, and I was feeling it at the end of that episode. So now I just have to drink a lot of wine, or a lot of vodka, which I did last time
Yeah.
That was quite the fun day.
That was
not the fun day after.
No.
When I was extremely sunburnt and hungover.
You were in a rough place the next day.
Yes, I was. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know how we got off on this.
I don't either.
Oh, Jen said she had a bottle of wine, so
yeah. This was our first. This was our really tangent of the episode.
Is this our first tangent?
It was our first tangent, of the whole episode, I think.
I'm so sorry. Listen, guys, I'm tired today. I,
Yes.
I, I got up late. I thought I would have time to and I got up and I had to like get ready right away. So I guess I'm starting to wake up now. We're about to go on some tangent.
Yes. We're almost done. Okay. So the last thing I really want to point out is their contract that Lorraine had with New Line. And there's this made me stop and read it twice and 3 times and several more times after that, because
This this was the moment when Jen texted me and was like, "We're taking down the fucking Warrens."
we're taking them down. We're taking
This is
them
when it
down.
happened.
It is.
When she stumbled across this information, she was like,
I'm like,
"Nope."
fuck it all. Burn it to the ground.
I said I wasn't getting into this shit. We're getting into this shit now.
Yeah. Okay, so a detailed Hollywood Reporter reported that Lorraine Warren's deal with New Line, where she served as a consultant for the films, included unusually specific restrictions on how Ed and Lorraine could be portrayed. This is far more than just don't make us look bad, right? The reporting says that the film's contract said that they could not depict Ed or Lorraine engaging in any crimes. Okay, totally fair, right? I get that. That seems like something you would want in a contract.
I don't know. Maybe, but like if somebody was making like a movie based on my life, I wouldn't even consider that a worry that they would depict me.
But as we
committing
said, movies that are based on true stories are not always
True.
accurate. So,
and lawyers are involved in these contracts. So the
absolutely.
lawyer would have been like, "Hey, man, we don't want them to portray you."
Right.
And yeah, okay.
But it goes further than that, Kelly. When it says that they could not be portrayed engaging in any crimes, it includes a handful of very, very specific examples. Sex with minors, child pornography, prostitution, and sexual assault. It also says that neither spouse could be depicted as participating in an extramarital sexual relationships.
Was it ever reported that Lorraine had another relationship?
Not that I found, but I
Okay.
didn't dive as deep into her because I already had way too much content with Ed. So
Yeah.
So contracts like this, they don't prove anything on their own, but they do show specific reputational concerns down to very particular allegations.
Like you would think just putting in a contract that you can't depict them committing crimes, that's very broad.
Mm-hmm.
That encompasses I don't know what word I was trying to say.
I don't
That
either.
includes everything.
Encompasses.
Encompasses. That's where
the
I was
word.
trying to
Yeah.
probably go. Yeah. So it would be weird then to say you can't depict me committing vehicular homicide or vehicular manslaughter. You can't depict me committing arson.
Right.
You can't, you know, like,
Why are you
why
out?
you need those specifics?
That is my
Yeah.
question. And
Yeah.
I thought that was the biggest red flag because, and that the child pornography thing one really gets me because that's not a claim. Like, I
Right.
didn't
Like,
find
what the
anything.
fuck?
Why are you including that? Unless
What's this? When you find stuff like this out, it like the Warrens were always like I always thought like they were really well respected people back,
yeah.
back in the day. And then you find things out that just I recently found out my favorite series of books that I've ever read in my entire life was written by David Eddings. Okay. and he's got
What are these books?
two separate um series.
You getting somewhere with this?
Yes, I am
Okay.
getting somewhere.
Okay.
I'm on my tangent. I told you I'm awake, okay?
Just
Give me a
making
second.
sure. Just making sure.
I'll tie it together.
Okay.
I love all of these books. They've always been like he has been that is my favorite, probably was my favorite author. And I always wondered why they didn't make movies out of it because think it's very like Lord of the Rings ish.
Okay.
And I thought this would be like a great movie, but it's like a lot of books. So I thought maybe a TV series could be created with this story. So just last night, I thought, let me go onto Reddit and see if there's anything in the works or people are talking about ever making this stuff like a movie or anything. Because David Eddings and his wife Lee, I think her name was, or they're both passed at this point. So I go onto Reddit and I see a thing that says David Eddings and his wife were monsters. And I'm like,
no.
what? So it's got a link to an article written about them. They adopted 2 kids. And in the 70s, they both spent a year in jail for child abuse. Like it was terrible. When police arrived at the house, their adopted son was in a cage in the basement
Oh
with
my
other
God.
animals and they were like beating these kids and I was like, "What? Why?" So
That's the
this reminds
worst.
me of that with the Warrens of how like you think if you just take what you see out in the media just at
Yeah.
face value, you're like, oh, these people are like, they're big in the paranormal world. They're credible people. They're good people. They're moral people. And then you just get right under that surface and you're like, fuck. See, I tied it all together.
Good job. Yeah. Yeah. When I first started hearing about issues with the Warrens, it was always evidence related. Like, how trustworthy was their evidence? And in the paranormal world, that's a fair question and doesn't necessarily mean anything. You know, it's hard,
Right.
especially, I mean, maybe not as much with them because they're older, but especially with today's technology, it's very easy to fake shit. Like with AI and you just never know what is real. And I always just assumed that was it. Like maybe they did some questionable shit with evidence, but oh man.
It's big. Oh, and just to throw this out there, if anybody is like, what series of books is this? If you look up David Eddings, you can find it. And since they're both dead, all proceeds, if you buy their books, goes to a college. It goes into education of other
Oh,
people.
nice. Okay. We
So
like that.
you can, I think, morally be okay purchasing those books and listening to them because it does not go to them anymore. They're
Yep.
long dead and it just goes towards education in a college.
I struggle with that with the Harry Potter series as a typical millennial who grew up on Harry Potter and loves Harry Potter. I am glad that we as millennials have decided to separate the series from the author who has awful stances on certain topics. And yeah, I struggle because I still know when the money, she's still around and the money is going directly into her pocket, and I don't like that, but I love the book so much.
Well, you already have the books.
I do. But even
So
like,
it's not like you're purchasing,
right,
like
but
I won't buy anything Harry Potter anymore.
yeah,
Like official Harry Potter anything.
yeah. And that's where I struggle because there are things I want or like, and even going to the Universal, the Harry Potter stuff there, like that's all fantastic, but I know she gets kickbacks on all of it, and
I will say going to that Wizarding World of Harry Potter at Universal was one of the most magical experiences of my life.
yeah, it's pretty fantastic if you're a
It
fan.
really, and I'm only this much of a fan.
Oh yeah. Oh, you should have seen my face the first time I walked into Diagon
I
Alley.
saw like Emily was. That's why we went, is because I had to get Emily there.
Yeah.
And
when I went with my ex, and his friend got us into the park because he had a friend who got us tickets, and he wasn't gonna go, but like he got into the park just to walk with me to the Wizarding World because he wanted to see my reaction when I first walked in. And Yeah, it's a fantastic place. But back to Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Sorry,
Okay,
I
contracts.
tangented our way out. Contracts.
Why does this matter? It adds to the bigger picture, right? The Warrens' ecosystem wasn't just about the paranormal. It was media, it was money, rights, and reputation management. When you see this same pattern, vague sourcing, shifting timelines, unnamed clergy, evidence that they're not allowed to show us, and then contracts that kind of help control the narrative, it just reinforces the same core idea. The Warrens weren't just investigating stories, they were producing them.
Yeah. They were.
They were. And that brings us to the end of part 2 about Ed and Lorraine Warren. The timeline cracks, the authority claims, and the evidence problem that shows up before we even get to any of the fucking cases. We haven't even gotten to the cases yet.
Oh, I love it. But now I feel like I can't watch these movies anymore. And they are good movies, like Hollywood production movies. They are
good movies. I honestly don't know. I could look into it where the proceeds go, because obviously Ed and Lorraine are dead. I'm imagining they go to their daughter,
Judy.
Yeah, but I don't know.
I would imagine.
And Judy is not. While her husband is kind of tangled in a lot of this controversy, and I'm sure they're married, so he gets the profits as well. I didn't really find a ton about Judy being involved in any way, or how much she knew or didn't know, or I did not dive into that. It didn't come up in any of my research, and I already had way too much to dive into, so I didn't go looking for it. So
I get it. Well, if you loved hanging out with us today, please consider leaving us a rating or a review. Please.
And follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Not My Ghost Podcasts for even more chaos.
Want bonus episodes and extra spooky perks?
Who doesn't?
Join our what?
I said who doesn't?
Oh, okay. Join our ghosty community at patreon.com/notmyghost,
Do you have a creepy encounter of your own? Please email it to us at notmyghostpodcast@gmail.com, and you might hear it featured on a future episode.
And we are having so much fun with those episodes.
So much fun.
And if you want to actually see us reacting to all of this spooky nonsense, you can watch the whole thing on YouTube. Go subscribe and drop us a comment so we know we're not screaming into the void. And please give us grace. We are not used to recording video. And I realized today I kind of got a little bit of a resting bitch face where I just look like angry. And I don't know what to do with my face when Jen is talking. So be nice.
Please be nice to us. Thank you for joining us on this unsettling deep dive through the Warrens' timeline cracks, credibility claims, and the myth-making under the myth-making. As you pick your way through the based on a true story part of this paranormal culture, keep this in mind.
If it's not your ghost,
it's not your problem.
Until next time, stay spooky.
And stay skeptical.